Hello, my name is Ruth Reitan, and I'm an assistant professor at the University of Miami in the International Studies Department. For a number of years, I've been involved in a scholar activist network called NIGD, the Network Institute for Global Democratization, which is one of these kind of scholar activist networks that are coming together. And in that network, we have a position on the World Social Forum's International Council, which is really just a facilitative kind of organizing body of the World Social Forum. So because of that, I've kind of got a view into the whole alter-globalization movement via the World Social Forum and trying to understand how we can continue to expand the social forum to meet the needs of the movement, both at the kind of world level but also at the regional and local levels. Many people like Chachere and other people have noted, and Manuel Castells, that the net, the World Wide Web, is actually, it's both a model and it's also kind of an ethic of the way that the global movement of movements or alter-globalization movement is actually networking. So it's more horizontal, it's about kind of spontaneous connections, this like affinity kind of hooking up and unhooking, and so it's very collaborative and it's very global. And I think that without the technology of the web, first of all, we wouldn't be able to do these kind of mass mobilizations that we do, spontaneous things, whether what you're seeing in Egypt or any of the other movements that we're talking about, environment, women's rights, human rights, etc. But also that the web actually teaches us how to be more democratic, more participatory, more kind of direct action. And so the two things are really co-constituted. I mean, without the web, we couldn't have the alter-globalization movement. There is a sense that the core cannot continue to export its crises to the periphery, So the first world cannot exist in this kind of pristine, stable environment devoid of the chaos that's growing in the third world or the, developing world. So many of the crises that we've seen, from the debt crisis in the 70s to the food crises, the IMF food riots, the structural adjustment programs that we, the North, imposed on the developing countries as a consequence of those crises, the Asian financial crisis and how that spread, all of that volatility and all of the solutions that we imposed on those countries are exactly kind of what's happening to us now. So in a way, it had to happen because the global economy is all connected, but it's also caused, it's caused two things. At the level of the elite, they're learning a lot of lessons about what they did wrong during those crises and now trying to fix it in the core. But from a perspective of solidarity, I think it has a kind of leveling effect, because now we are experiencing the crises that these other countries have been dealing with for a very long time. Still in the global north, relatively we have some kind of social safety net that people in these other countries don't have. But still, I think you see the level of fear and anxiety. It's really here and it's very palpable, so we have an opportunity somehow to build kind of global solidarity because we can all empathize with each other now. On the other hand, it can also go in the other direction. Instead of global solidarity and sharing and participating more broadly, people can also turn in on themselves and on each other, and you can have this more kind of fear-based, nationalistic or nativist reactions, which you're seeing in things from the militia movement to the Tea Party. But again, I don't want to demonize the right, for example, because I think this left-right, it's not really a dichotomy, it's really a circle, right? You can go so far to the left that you come around to totalitarianism, like under Stalin, just like you can do that on the right, like Hitler. They meet in the same place, more or less. And so, the Tea Party is a American hybrid, but they're libertarians, Libertarians, you can have left libertarians and right libertarians. It really depends on what you think about solidarity in general and beyond the nation's borders. And I think that the Tea Party is interesting because, they're very locally focused, And, I think they can go both ways. So, I appreciate civil society action in all of its manifestations. And I don't think that the left should hold a kind of, monopoly on participation. I mean, people have legitimate concerns about order, about law, about, immigration, these sorts of things. So I think it's important to keep those like lines of communication open and not to be ideological on the left, because that doesn't help, the discourse. I mean, I think we need to talk about issues and we need to talk about values. And I think there's a lot more commonality across the spectrum than maybe the mainstream media, let's say, would have us believe. Well, unfortunately, globalization, I mean, the best things about it, like the World Wide Web, like we're talking about, but also the worst things about it, which is the just extreme fear and precarity that is spreading, economically, that, again, the social safety nets that many countries either aspired to or had, especially in Europe, are being, frayed, and also just, the massive kind of upheavals from wars and from, environmental degradation that is causing people to move in unprecedented numbers. I mean, I think the issue, for example, of immigration is maybe more blown up than it is really a reality today, but it's something that's really happening and going to continue to happen with climate change, et cetera. And these are things that are really going to fundamentally, challenge both the global left and the global right. And how do we deal with that? Is it possible that we can think about each other without borders? I mean, can we really be one global humanity? I mean, this is a huge question. And what kind of responsibilities do we have, like to Mexico, for example? I mean, the NAFTA is a perfect example. I mean, NAFTA, it's a very complicated agreement, but one of the effects is that it destroyed the corn market in all of Mexico. So it basically destroyed rural agriculture because of all this new influx of cheap corn. Consequently, people are on the move. Where are they going to go? They're going to go to Mexico, then they're going to go to Mexico City, then they don't find work there, they're going to keep going north. So we have responsibilities beyond our borders, things that we have voted for or our public officials have done that have had ramifications elsewhere, and now we have a kind of responsibility to deal with that. So I think that that's a huge issue that we're going to be facing, both because of economic changes, wars, et cetera, militarization, and climate catastrophes that are going to continue to happen. The Indigenous rights movements and the unprecedented way, it seems, in which Indigenous activists, particularly in the Americas, North, Central, South, are really trying to network and build, not one solid unity because they're so very diverse, but to really kind of network on issues that are affecting all of them: land rights, communally held land, all of the natural resources, things that are happening. But with all of these like techno fixes that are coming from the climate, the UN climate summits, like the REDD+ agreements, all these very technical things, they're actually, touching down all over the globe and causing Indigenous peoples and Indigenous movements to have to come to terms with, this regime. And so they're both networking amongst themselves, but also networking with, environmental, ecological movements in a really unprecedented way. And another thing is that they're offering this kind of new discourse, which is like the civilizational critique, and it's really fundamental critique of, the whole capitalist democratic state apparatus. So it's a critique of everything that the left kind of has fought for as well. So it's causing, I think, a real rethink on the part, both theoretically and practically, about how we look at the state, how we look at, modernity in general, how we look at development, progress. So yeah, Indigenous networks, I think, are the ones to watch.